This video was made thanks to CuriosityStream. Watch TLDR ad-free and get exclusive videos from us by signing up to the CuriosityStream Nebula Bundle deal at curiositystream.com/TLDR Global. As the war in Ukraine has escalated, there's been a lot of speculation about how China will respond. Despite a friendly relationship between Putin and Xi, the CCP won't be particularly keen for a full-on war in Europe, not least because of the risk of World War III. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at what China thinks of the war in Ukraine and how they might respond. So we're going to split this video into three parts. First, we're going to take a look at China's stated position on Ukraine, essentially what the Chinese Foreign Ministry has been saying over the last week. Second, we're going to try and figure out what China is actually thinking about Ukraine. And third, we're going to ask whether China could save Russia's crumbling economy. So let's start with the first bit of the video, China's stated position on Ukraine. This is basically the only thing on the agenda at the moment in the Chinese Foreign Ministry's daily press conferences, and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has been asked about it so many times over the weekend, he put out a special document expounding China's 5-point position on Ukraine. This document is only a few hundred words, so if you want to, you can just go read it for yourself, but the TLDR of those 5 points reads as follows. Point 1 states that China thinks that the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all countries, including Ukraine, should be respected. China is big on what political theorists call external sovereignty, and has, for this reason, refused to recognise Russia's annexation of Crimea or the independence of Abkhazia or South Ossetia. Point 2 says that, in the face of NATO's eastward expansion, China considers Russia's security demands legitimate, and that all sides should give up what the Chinese Foreign Ministry calls the Cold War mentality. The Cold War mentality is a term that's been part of Chinese political lingo for the last 2 decades, and it essentially refers to the idea that national security is a zero-sum game, motivated by a desire for world hegemony. Instead, China recommends that great powers like Russia and NATO accept one another's differences and coexist happily in a multipolar world. Point 3 says that both sides should exercise restraint to prevent, quote, large-scale humanitarian crises. Point 4 says that China encourages diplomatic efforts conducive to a peaceful settlement in Ukraine, and notes that the Ukraine issue has evolved into a complex historical context. China says that Ukraine should function as a bridge between the East and the West, not a frontier for big world confrontation. Here, China seems to be agreeing with Russia, implicitly advocating against Ukrainian membership of Western organisations like NATO and the EU. China also supports implementing the philosophy of indivisible security, something Putin appealed to in his speech on Thursday last week. The term indivisible security was codified by the OSCE and says that the security of one state should not come at the expense of another. Putin claims that Ukraine's security in the form of NATO or EU membership violates this principle by threatening Russia's security. It's worth saying that this is a particular interpretation of indivisible security, and the OSCE also expressly prohibit any claims to a sphere of influence. But anyway, you get the point. In parroting Putin's talking points on indivisible security, China implicitly legitimizes it. Point 5 says that the UN Security Council should play a role in resolving the Ukraine issue. So those are the 5 points. The last thing we'll say is that although it's not included in the 5 points, in his regular press conferences, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi also opposes Western sanctions, arguing that sanctions cause more problems than they solve. If you want to know if that's true, go and watch our video on sanctions. Anyway, that's China's stated position on Ukraine. While it doesn't approve of Russia's violating Ukraine's sovereignty, China is sympathetic to Russia's apparent legitimate security concerns, and seems to implicitly advocate Ukrainian non-membership of NATO and the EU. In his press conferences over the last week, Wang Yi has held this line consistently. So that's what China says it thinks. But what does it really think? Well, obviously it's hard to know, but there are signs that it's not particularly happy. Originally, China was supportive of Russia's aggression in Ukraine. In early February, China released a statement supporting Russia's demands against further NATO enlargement and accused the US of hegemonic hypocrisy. This was somewhat unsurprising. China has spent the last few years railing against Western hegemony and saw NATO enlargement as a symptom of that same problem. But while China shared Russia's antipathy to the Western world order, that didn't mean that they wanted full-out war in Ukraine, for three reasons. First, it's bad for the economy. The sanctions that the world has imposed on Russian banks, companies and individuals are unprecedented. This is the first time a G20 central bank has been sanctioned, and will have as yet unknown consequences for the global economy. At the moment, China's property sector, which makes up 25% of GDP, is struggling with falling sales and mass defaults. The last thing the CCP needs right now is a war-induced global economic crisis. The war could force China to make a decision between Russia and the West. In his speeches before the war in Ukraine, Putin seemed to imply that he wasn't worried about sanctions because he could just trade with China instead. If Putin's invasion had gone as planned, this would probably have worked. Unfortunately for Putin, it hasn't, and the West has significantly stepped up sanctions. If the West decides to implement secondary sanctions, i.e. sanctions on countries that help Russia, like possibly China, China will have to decide whether it wants to support Russia or keep its place in the world's financial order. It violates the rules-based system that China is supposed to be committed to. China regularly expresses its support for a rule-based order based on the UN and related institutions. China often uses this framing to criticize the US when it violates UN rules, as it did in Iraq in 2003, or with the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, which the US is yet to ratify. Obviously, Russia's invasion of Ukraine is not sanctioned by the UN, which puts China in a tough spot. So you get the point, China is wary of full-on war in Ukraine. This is probably why China abstained on a recent UN resolution condemning Russia, rather than vote against it, and why certain state-owned banks have implemented limited sanctions on Russia. Nonetheless, so far China has been pretty cautious, although if the war continues to escalate, China will probably be forced to more actively pick a side. This leads us on to the third and final bit of this video. If China did side with Russia, could China save Russia's economy? Well, the first thing to say is that no one knows what the economic fallout will be, so this is all speculative. But the evidence suggests that while China could help, the Russian economy will definitely suffer in the short to medium term. This is largely because all the things that China could do to help will take time. For example, there's been some speculation that China and Russia could develop an Eastern alternative to SWIFT. In practice, this would take years, if not decades, to be implemented. Similarly, there's been some speculation that China could replace Europe as Russia's main oil and gas market. Again, this will take time. Current gas pipelines from Russia to China only have an annual capacity of about 35 BCM, with new pipelines expected to take that number to 50 BCM by 2025. But this is less than 30% what Russia currently sells to Europe. Nonetheless, while China won't be able to save the Russian economy in the short term, it'll still be interesting to see how they react to Putin's war in Ukraine, and whether we could be seeing the beginning of a new anti-Western Russia-China axis. If you're interested in other slightly difficult and weird relationships, you might like our new video on Transnistria, a region of Moldova which declared independence in 1991, and is avowedly pro-Russian, and kind of tied up into the current dispute. That video is exclusively available over on Nebula. You might have heard of them before, but my creator friends and I have teamed up to build our own platform where we don't need to worry about demonetization or the algorithm. Over there you can find all of our latest videos ad-free, and we're also going to start posting exclusive Nebula Plus videos over there too, with the first few already live. It's not just us either. All of our favourite educational creators are already there, like Wendover Productions, Real Life Law, Polymatter, Legal, Half as Interesting, and many more. But wait, we said this video was brought to you by CuriosityStream, right? Well, as a platform full of the best documentaries online, they naturally love educational creators like us. As such, we've worked out a deal whereby if you sign up for CuriosityStream using the link in the description, you'll also get free access to Nebula. That's not just a trial either, you'll get access for as long as you're a member. To make things even better, for a limited time, they're offering a deal where you can get 26% off their already low price, making an entire year of both services less than $15. Less than $15 a year for all your favourite educational creators, as well as superb documentaries on CuriosityStream. Signing up at curiositystream.com/TLDR Global or clicking the link below not only gets you the deal, but also directly supports TLDR and educational content on the platform more generally, as well as getting you original content and an ad-free experience.